Welcome back to All That Jam. I'm joined today by Reed Mathis, and we have a lot to get into. How we doing, Reed?
Hey, man. How you doing?
Good, good. Got the guitar out there. All right. I told you we were going to do something else, but let me ask you. You originally were on bass. You become quite proficient with guitar. Did you learn them at the same time, or did you play bass and then pick up guitar?
No, I picked up a guitar in the 2020. But I wasn't originally on the bass. I mean, as far as my actual life, I may have been when you first met me.
Yes. Okay. What were you originally on then?
I mean, I started piano when I was 4. I started cello when I was 6. I started composing when I was 8.
Would you say that playing the bass and the cello that are they similar, or is that a completely different discipline?
Oh no, all stringed instruments are the same.
Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. I believe you. You also studied voice, didn't you?
Well, no, I sing a lot.
Right.
Is that the same thing?
I don't know, is it? I mean, I guess, Trey famously has been with a vocal coach for a few years, and all the fans joke about Broccoli and his vocal stylings that he's learned to do. Oh, man. All right, so you played, all right, the other night you played, You're Throwing Me Off, man.
I'm throwing you off?
Yeah, it's okay.
Oh.
It's okay. I told you before I was a fanboy. The other night you got to play with Dennis Mill and some other people, Joe Marcinek, who we love. After the Fish show, how did that gig go?
Musically, it was there was a ton of people there, and it seemed like everybody had a really good time.
But you didn't feel you weren't happy with when you walked off stage?
I mean, at one point I just left the stage. I just needed a break from it,
Right.
I
hear you.
It was, it was okay. It wasn't my gig, it wasn't a situation I had put together.
Right. I hear you.
So,
do you ever listen back to something that when you walked off stage you thought was not good and say, wow, it actually was pretty good?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's never bad. It's not that.
Right.
It's just like for me, it's more like, do I feel safe or not? Do I feel musically safe in this setting or not?
Okay.
That it's not like, is this good music or bad music? It's like, how do I feel in my body? Do I feel comfortable or do I feel pressure? From this situation, from the other musicians, is something expected of me or am I just expected to be myself? That's really the distinction. So, it didn't feel like a situation where I could really contribute much.
Okay. Fair. That's totally fair.
I wish I could. I'm envious of musicians who seem to always know, always have something to say. I'm in plenty of situations where I'm like, this isn't missing anything.
Right.
Like, I don't know. I've always loved music and bands where not everybody has to play all the time, and I'm in situations a lot these days where it's like you count off the song and everybody's playing from the get-go and everybody plays the whole time. Right. And guitar players are specifically guilty of it, where they're like, now I'm playing rhythm guitar or something. Like they go into a mindset where they're no longer sensitive and they're no longer present with what the music's actually doing. And so, I like situations where there's space, where people leave room for somebody else to maybe speak softly, and that's easier to come by when you're in a band. When it's just like a one-off where you had no rehearsal and you literally haven't even met some of the people before. Like you literally meet them on stage. Hi, I'm Reed.
Right.
That shit's exciting, but it's not often very responsive to variations in the template, shall we say.
I feel you. So with something like, I guess, with Jacob Fred, let's go there with Jacob Fred.
Mm.
The early years were really something different than what it ended up with as the tree. Is that fair?
Not musically, but different instruments.
Right. But do you feel like you had more space with the trio?
Yeah. Yeah, a lot more space.
Right. I love that. You mentioned that the guitar you picked up in 2000. So COVID,
Well,
when COVID,
I'll take
okay,
issue with that, which is that I didn't pick up the role of melody in that register.
okay,
If you've heard Jacob Fred, you know that uh, a lot of, if not most of the melody was played by me on the bass with an octave pedal that made it sound 2 octaves up.
hmm,
And people often thought it was a keyboard, and everybody assumed it was a guitar. But then they would look on stage and be like, wait, there's no guitar player. I heard that all the fucking time.
right,
So the role of melody and soloist, I've been doing for 30 years.
right,
The reason I picked up the guitar is because I feel like I'm increasingly, especially since I moved to the Bay Area, in situations where the, shall we say, cult of rock guitar is the template for all gigs. And I have discovered that for most people, the instrument of the bass is a very specific behavior pattern.
hmm,
And it does not include the way I've always used my instrument.
right,
So I'm put with a situation where for all the musicians I'm working with, even the brilliant ones, their whole style is predicated on the bass behaving a certain way. If the bass does not behave that way, then they can't do their shtick.
right,
And so I'm put in this position when I'm in this sort of all-star lineup, one night only, let's get together, play dead tunes gigs, which I do a ton of these days. I'm in this situation where if I were to actually be myself on my instrument, like I was in Jacob Fred, like I was in Electric Beethoven, if I were to do that, it would disrupt everybody else on the stage. I'm not kidding. Because their concept of the piano or the guitar is based on the bass does that.
right,
In Jacob Fred, Brian, the piano player, played tons of bass with his left hand.
hmm,
A lot of the night, over half the night. You know, he was the bass player, not me. And I was the melody and the soloist,
right,
you know. And was I good at it? Who knows? I don't care if I was good at it. It was how I related to music and how I expressed myself and why I felt like this career was worth it, was to
right.
express myself melodically,
Hmm.
not to reenact 70s rock bass playing.
You
So,
weren't ELP. You weren't trying to be ELP or
or
something.
John Paul Jones or Aston Barrett, any of my heroes. I'm not trying to be any of them. I'm not trying to be Paul McCartney. I'm not trying to be Phil Lesh. I'm not trying to be Paul Chambers. I'm not trying to be Ron Carter. I'm not trying to be Jacob Pastorius. I'm not trying to be Sting. I'm not trying to be James Jameson. I'm not trying to be Bootsy Collins. I'm not trying to be a pattern. I'm not trying to recreate an iconic pattern. I'm trying to tell the truth about who I am. And so I increasingly find myself in these situations where 80% of who I am as an artist, as a musician, is not the behavior of my instrument.
Okay.
Do you see what I'm saying?
I
So
do.
I'm like, what do I do with that 80%? If this game of acting out 70s guitar rock will be disrupted by my authentic self, well, then what do I do with that authentic self? Like I'm good at being like, yes, I can do the bassist behavior.
Hmm.
I know how to do it. So I'm willing to be like, I volunteer so we can all have a good game. I will do the bassist behavior because I get that my whole thing is based on that.
Right.
I've come off stage in front of huge audiences before and had a teammate be like, we'll take a set break and I'll come off stage and a teammate will be like, yo, Reed, stay in your lane, dude. Stay in your lane. And I'll be like, what do you mean? And they'll be like, just play normal bass. I've literally had friends of mine talk to me that way at gigs, right? Especially a big gig where they feel a lot of pressure and they want to look cool and they want to make their moves. And their
Mhm.
moves are predicated on the bass behaving a certain way.
Right.
And so suddenly I'm responsible for them having an okay time and not vice versa.
And that
And
takes you out of the whole thing, I guess, huh?
if that was the career, I would never have signed up. I thought I was an expressive being that was experiencing creation and community as one thing.
Mhm.
But if I'm actually in a service role to the other instruments, and they're not reciprocating that, well, then, 80% of who I am, they go, well, that's guitar shit.
Right.
For a long time, the meanest thing you could say about a bass player is that it's like, oh, well, he wishes he was a guitarist. Like that was a put down I heard a lot in the 90s. Like, oh, so people used to trash talk Les Claypool,
Right.
people older than me, that didn't
Mhm.
get it, or Jaco Pastorius, or anybody that used the instrument as a symphonic entity, not
Mhm.
a role-playing entity. Those people were all accused of wishing they were guitarists. You see what I'm saying? People
Right.
said
I
that
do.
about Phil Lesh,
Mhm.
like he's almost more of a guitar, people say that kind of shit. What does that even mean? It means that the bass isn't an instrument. It's a pattern of behavior that we're supposed to conform to so that we can do the 70s guitar rock skit together. And that is a very exhausting way to play the sport of group improvisation.
There you go. There you
So
go.
I'm like, okay, well, if 80% of who I am is you guys think it's this thing, cool, I'll play this thing.
Right. Fair enough. Fair enough. I love it. No, thank you. That was beautiful. Where I was actually trying to go with it though was the fact that COVID happened. All of a sudden, you have to stop touring. You ended up with an album, The Ladder. You ended up with the
Oh,
Winter
actually,
Wood.
I made the ladder in 2012.
Oh, really? And it didn't come
Uh-huh.
out till 21?
Correct.
Right. So did you remaster it or anything, or you just rediscovered it? And
Yeah, it had never been mastered, so we mastered it.
all right, beautiful, beautiful. And the other thing was there you have that short about Jacob Fred Winterwood where you talk about going into your storage, finding all these tapes, and that is just absolutely fascinating to
Oh
me.
man, awesome! Wow,
I mean,
and that was
so
such a special time. That was such a special time. Holy
right,
crap!
can you talk a little bit about COVID? I mean, it shocked the world. It was tough on a
Oh,
lot of people, but I feel like, I mean, for myself, I discovered what I wanted to do at 50 years old,
oh,
you know.
I mean, yeah, that was weird. That was a terrifying time. I went into this sort of fit of finishing old projects, like the ladder. I made 6 Jacob Fred new releases out
Mhm.
of stuff I'd found, recordings I'd found. And then I made sort of an infomercial for those 6 releases, which I think is what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Uh,
It is
and
packed with
then,
information and great pictures, old
oh
flyers. It's
man,
fantastic.
yeah, that was really just an attempt to get people to listen to the 6 albums I put together, which I hope you did.
Yes.
But
I call it
uh,
music to think by because I like to put it on because it challenges me on some other level with
hmm,
my hyperactivity and everything. And I tend to
ah,
be able to think better with this pseudo chaos that's going on maybe behind me.
huh, it sounds chaotic.
Yeah, at times, yes, it does. I mean, it isn't soulful strut. It isn't what you turn on the radio and hear on AM radio. Because of what you're doing, your 80% is showing there. You know?
Sure.
So well, let's talk about it a little bit. I mean, Winterwood is can you give us the story a little bit for people who don't know? Because I found the whole process just so fascinating.
How do you mean? Can you be more specific?
Well, isn't that the album that was graphed out? And you guys had to learn how to play it after the
Oh,
fact?
no, that was Little Tay Rides Again.
Oh, that was Little. Okay, so let's talk about Little Tay. I'm sorry I mixed the two up. Can you
Oh,
talk
okay.
about that? Because that fascinated me that you had to learn how to play your album afterwards.
Yeah, we collaborated with a really brilliant friend of ours, and it was a pretty fucked up process that wasn't exactly fun for us. I don't know if it was fun for him. It was a very strange collaboration. Sometimes the best thing, Apocalypse Now wasn't fun to make. I mean, sometimes just because it wasn't pleasant doesn't mean didn't make great art or wasn't worthwhile. But that was an unpleasant process. And then the album that we ended up with, we were just like, this doesn't sound anything like us. And like, is that even us playing? Like, what happened? Like he made completely new music out of what we'd recorded. I thought we had recorded a bunch of our songs, and he just chopped it all up. And when it came out, it wasn't anything we'd written. It was new music that he'd written using samples of us, which was fascinating and not at all what I thought we'd been doing all year. So I was shocked, like, oh, these are new songs that are built out of samples of us playing. They weren't like remixes of our songs. It was new songs. And I was like, okay. But then we were like, well, we got to tour this thing. Like, this is our new album, So we had to learn these songs that it was like transcribing a hip hop album or something, like we're going to play, people do that. They'll be like, oh, we're going to perform Doggy Style by Snoop Dogg, or we're going to perform Liquid Swords by Jizza. We're going to perform the whole record. So a live band will learn the samples and learn the beats and learn the pattern. So we basically just did that, but with an album that was made of samples of us.
It's fantastic. And then you did tour it, and you played the same set list every night, right? Isn't that the one?
Only time in my life I ever did that.
Right. So how was that? Was that empowering on any level?
Incredible. It was incredible. It was like being in a musical. It was like doing 8 shows a week of Hamilton. It was like being in the cast of a musical. It was like, yeah, we're going to do this fucking super powerful thing that hits hard every time. And we trace the same thing, and it has a impact. It's this exact thing, like I guess that's what most bands are doing. They know ahead of time what they're going to sound like and what they're going to play. The guitars do this, the bass does this, the drums do this. Like, I had never done that before.
Right.
Our songs didn't have set parts. There wasn't a bass part to any of our songs, or a piano part to any of our songs, or a drum part to any of our songs. We had the song, but then the parts were like this. I don't know what you're about to say. I don't know what I'm about to say. This is a conversation. So we just had the instruments behave that way, not reading from a script. But for that album, we read from a script, and it was so fun, just because it was the opposite of what we'd always done.
Right. I love it. It's fantastic. Something else that let's take a little left turn. Something else that you've worked, transcribed, turned into something different is your Electric Beethoven, right? What was the process like for that, for taking something written for a symphony and boiling it down to the instruments you had?
I mean, I just took away all instruments, including the ones we had, and turned it into the way we'd always built Jacob Fred songs, which was the song. The song exists even if no instruments are playing it. The song isn't tied to specific instruments. The song exists as an abstract, fixed entity that can become any instrument, that can come out of any instrument. You could play Hey Jude on an accordion and 3 spoons, right?
Right.
And it's still Hey Jude, even though there's no accordion and no spoons in the Beatles version, right? So the song Hey Jude exists regardless of what instrument it comes out of. See what I mean?
Yes.
So I basically just turned the Beethoven songs into that, where the song he wrote exists independent of the instruments it came out of. So then that song can come out of any instrument. And people do that. Holly Bowling, plays a 40-minute Fish improv on solo piano, you know?
Beautifully,
You
I might
know,
add.
and like, I always was taught, in my family, everybody played multiple instruments.
Okay.
And so when I was little, I just saw the grown-ups being able to pick up a mandolin and pick up a piano and pick up a cello and sing off of sheet music um, finger pick the guitar and play the xylophone, and all the adults were doing all of this. And so I just thought, to learn a
Everyone did it?
song, well, I would just like, if I learned a Led Zeppelin song, I learned it on the piano, I learned it on the bass, I learned it on the guitar. You know what I mean? And then it
Right.
was like, oh, now I know the song.
Right.
Not I know the guitar part. I'm just like, I know the song,
Right.
So I just always thought that was how everybody could approach playing music. It's not about which instrument are you holding. It's about what is your actual relationship to this piece of music. And then your instrument behaves as you are, not as your instrument is supposed to behave.
Right. There's a beauty to actually listening to a record and learning to play it that may be lost today, because you can go on YouTube and they'll say, technically, this is exactly how you play the solo from Immigrant Song, or something.
Right.
You
Well,
know,
and
so there,
so much innovation happens when somebody is trying to mimic their hero and they miss. You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
so many of the greats were like, actually, I was just trying to sound like Homeboy, and I couldn't do it. It came out all fucked up, and then that becomes the new style that people emulate. And it's just like, I don't know what happened. I was just trying to do my thing. Most great innovators weren't trying to be innovators. They were just telling the truth about
Right.
their experience. It's not like, wow, I need an original thought. It's like, no, you just say what your thought is. Chances are it's original, because we're all having subjective experiences,
Right.
So like, having a unique approach to a piece of music, or a unique approach to your instrument, or a unique approach to a genre is not about finding an original way or coming up with anything. It's about revealing your actual self.
I
See what I
feel
mean?
that. I feel that.
Because there's no way you're identical to Jimmy Page
Right.
or James Jamerson. There's no way. So if you are really being yourself, there's no way you're going to make the same choices those guys made, even if they're your favorite musician of all time.
Right. Right.
You're not.
But the process of learning it is what teaches you.
Of
And
course,
makes you.
yeah. I mean, you got to learn to talk like your parents before you can learn how to not talk like them.
Right.
You
Right. You don't.
know?
There's so many bands, if you listen to like early stuff they wrote, you're like, yeah, that's totally a Neil Young song. But they were learning in
Right.
order to become what they came down the road. And maybe you never hear those early songs anymore at a certain point. But the Rolling Stones, they copped all the blues licks. They taught
Yeah.
themselves to become what they did. Keith.
Yeah. I mean, they would have been a kind of a basic ass band if they had stayed what they started as. Yeah. But the reason we're still talking about them, unlike most of their contemporaries, is that they grew, and they very rapidly became something unprecedented,
Right.
something that did not resemble blues artists, did not resemble their heroes. It was a mishmash of all the shit they dug. And
Yep.
that's why we're still talking about them. That's my point with all of this, with the reason I'm holding this thing. Like, it's like becoming more yourself. That's what I love about music for the audience, and it's like, we should all be becoming new. Don't we want to get together and become new, or do we want to become more like the past? I feel like we need new feelings. We need to be ready for new feelings. We need to practice feeling new feelings.
Right. Kind of almost reinventing things as you go along.
I mean, the thing is, things are reinventing themselves. And if we don't impose a pattern on them, they reinvent naturally. We don't have to do anything new. We are new.
Right.
I feel like we just so often insist on making something that resembles the past because we're scared and lonely, and we want to feel good together. And that's cool. But if we're all watching The Office all the time, no one's going to make a new movie. No one's going to make a new show. You know what I
Like,
mean?
drives
Like,
me crazy, the remaking of 70s movies and shows into movies now. I'm just like, why?
absolutely, unless you're using it to tell a new story, you know?
Sure,
Everyone's
sure.
always like, film buffs will be like, well, Star Wars was really a ripoff of Stagecoach and Kurosawa, and like and it's like, yeah, well, but it isn't a reenactment of those things.
It was set in outer space.
It's a new piece of art. Well, yeah, and it's just sure, there's archetypes.
Right. Right. They say there's like 14 stories in the
Right.
world.
And songs. You
everything
can
can
say the
be
same
right.
thing about songs, which
Right.
is fine. But there aren't 14 people. So if 100 people are singing the same song, it should sound like 100 songs.
Right. Or you give 100 people the same prompt, either on an instrument or a writing prompt.
Exactly. And, maybe we all would answer some questions the same, because they'd say, how many feet do you have? And you'd say 2 or whatever, because so there is a lot of overlap in our experience, but we're not automatons and we're not clones. And if we're going to play Scarlet Begonias, you know what I mean?
Right. Make it your own.
Just,
what it
it's like,
deserves.
you don't have to make it anything.
Okay, fair enough. It'll happen. If you let it happen.
Making it something is the problem. You're making it like it used to be. But if you let the real present moment, your real self, and the real person you're in front of, really you, not my idea about an interviewer, but like you specifically. Do you know what I mean? Like if you're doing that, it's not going to sound like I don't know.
I hear you. No, I'm totally with you. You're fine. We're improvising.
Yeah.
This is what we do here. I have a whole nother YouTube channel, and that we talk about fish and we just vamp.
I just want to love music, and I just really want to love music. I don't want to be cynical about music. I don't want to be like, well, this is what it is. Like, I want to experience creation. I want to experience newness. I want to experience courage. I want to experience connecting with my vulnerable self, not with my social persona. I don't want who I wish I was to dance with who you wish you were. I want my real self to dance with your real self. And that's the difference between improvised music and reenactment.
And you've found a new outlet for that. Let's talk about the podcast a little bit. It's called The Gifts of Improvising. I did not know about this. I'm a bad host. I didn't realize beforehand. You pointed it out to me. I will go back and listen. It's on Osiris, but what you did there was invited musicians that you respect and look up to talk about what you were just talking about, improvising and being open.
Right. Improvising without... like if you were going to sing a Bob Marley song, would you use a Jamaican accent?
No, I would probably not.
Exactly. So you see what I mean? So that exact fact about your priorities, expand that out into all these other aspects of the song. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
In just the same way that you wouldn't put on a fake Jamaican accent to sing a Bob Marley song, in that same way, all the other aspects of the song.
Right, don't play a fake Jamaican bass line.
Yes. I mean, I grew up in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and a lot of the older musicians there and the younger musicians, they sounded like misfits, and they sounded very specific. And especially some of the older guys, the blues players, they really prided themselves on not sounding Texan and not sounding like Chicago blues and not sounding like that fake ass LA blues and whatever. They were really proud. No, we sound like Tulsa. This is Tulsa music, And so that feeling of being proud of how you don't fit the pattern, being proud of being yourself, being proud of being a little different. Like that's so baked into what is important to me about music, and, AI can give you a pretty convincing Jerry solo. You know what I mean? You could tell AI, I want to hear a Robert Louis Stevenson poem to the tune of Happy Birthday sung by Jerry Garcia. And
Boom.
maybe not right now, but in 6 months, and in a couple years, it'll be like, I want a hologram of Jerry Garcia riding an elephant, singing Motley Crue
Girls,
while,
girls, girls.
while strumming a Ravi Shankar raga on a sitar, and it will spit it out at you. So like, we don't need to do that. We don't need to sound like iconic things. We don't need to present mishmashes of iconic things. What our culture is missing, and what is increasingly becoming endangered, is natural, authentic self. Spontaneous, organic, flawed, messy, misfit,
like this,
imperfect self. Exactly. This is what robots can't do and will never be able to do. Suck.
I'm with you. I love that.
Like the ways in which we suck and the things we're embarrassed by, that's your voice. That's your art. I remember asking John Medeski back in 1995, I was like, dude, you're so confident. Do you ever feel embarrassed while you're improvising? He was like, all the time. I was like, well, how do you fix that? He was like, you don't fix that. That's your A game. I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? He was like, when you're playing so real that you're embarrassed, that's your A game, buddy. That's when you're not covering up with a mask. That's when you're not saying, do I sound like Keith Richards yet?
Right. Fantastic. I love it.
So
that's
like,
beautiful.
that's
it's really beautiful on some level, I mean,
yeah, the shit that is such a risk that you're like, oh, I hope they don't hate this.
Right.
That's your voice, that's your real voice.
Right.
Not like here's what my heroes sound like.
Right. My granddad always said to me, God rest his soul, that what anybody else thinks about you is none of your business. And I've really tried to live by that.
100%. And aren't you a happier, better person with better relationships?
Did you hear what so-and-so said? Nope.
Yeah.
Sorry. So who are some of the people you had on the podcast? Throw some names out at me.
Let's see. The first episode was Marco Benevento, Aaron Magner, Brad Barr, and Andrew Barr. And and at one point we had a little round table about Joe Russo, because we've all known him since we were whippersnappers. And he's grown into this incredible, titan. And then the second episode was Jay Lane. Third episode, Tom Hamilton. Fourth episode was Holly Bowling. Fifth episode was Mike Clark, Robert Walter, and Skerrick. Sixth episode was Dave Dreiwitz and a sort of written piece I did about Phil Lesh, because I made it right after he passed. The seventh episode was Natalie Cressman and Elliot Peck, and a little bit with Graham Lesh. And then the eighth episode was Brian Haas and Jason Smart, who I grew up playing with. Right. Brian especially. Jason was our fourth drummer, although most people consider that the original lineup, but they don't
Brian's
realize
your partner in crime. Well, I was going to ask you about.
Well, and then the ninth episode is Kim Ock and Adam McDougall.
Okay.
And then the 10th episode is Nathan Moore and Jeremy Corpus and my next door neighbor, all talking about A Complete Unknown, the movie, taking that shit apart. So I'm sorry.
Seen it. My kid's mad at me. She wants to see it. And
I've seen it 3 times.
Right. Worth it.
Beautiful. Really beautiful.
Let me ask you about Marco. Didn't you play Carnegie Hall with him at one time?
Oh yeah, we made 6 records. We were really playing a lot for a minute.
Right. What was it like playing Carnegie Hall? That has to be cool.
Oh, it's great. Yeah. It
Practice, right?
Yeah. Although, turns out you just rent the place.
Right. I love it.
But my parents performed there before I was born.
Cool.
And, growing up, my mom's key ring, on her key ring was she had the ticket bronzed from the first time she sang at Carnegie Hall. So all growing up, whenever I had to get my mom's keys, it was grabbing this huge Carnegie Hall ticket stub from 1969, and so it felt really cool because standing and my grandfather performed at Carnegie Hall in 1955, and they made a live album that won a Grammy that year, or won a Grammy the next year.
What's it called?
It's the Brahms Requiem.
Okay.
He was with Bruno Walter and the New York Philharmonic.
Wow.
And so I was the third generation to play Carnegie Hall in my family.
Love it.
So that was cool, man. And to do it with Marco and Andrew, Andrew's my friggin' hero, Yeah, that was magical. And, to stand on the spot where Charlie Parker stood, to stand on the spot where John Coltrane and Thelonious Monk stood, to stand in the room where Duke Ellington premiered Black, Brown, and Beige.
It's just dripping with it. I guess the stage is just...
I mean, good God almighty. Lenny Bruce, where Lenny Bruce used to hold court for 3 hours in a blizzard, where, that friggin' room,
Do you like trios better? You've been in quite a few.
Yeah. Yep. Trio's my favorite.
Trio's your spot.
Like you asked me about the gig the other night at the Boom Boom Room. It's like, I feel really inhibited when there's like 8 instruments on stage, even if they're great, great players. That's kind of what I was trying to say. I'm in a lot of situations where there's, 1 or 2 more instruments than maybe we need. And then oftentimes there's a bunch of sit-ins, and it's fun. And it definitely makes for good camera. It looks good on social media to have a lot of sit-ins and guests and shit. But
gives the journalists lots to write about too.
Yeah, exactly. Because you can't write about music. You can only tell the logistics of what happened and your subjective little poem. But so like musician makes great music is not a headline. Someone sits in with someone is a headline.
Hey, so Branford sits in with J-Rad. It's
precisely.
all over the place.
But band makes incredible music, period, is not a compelling headline for some reason, even though that's what we all want.
Right. Fish gets away with that. Fish is like, they did a fantastic Groovy Waves last night. It was 38 minutes.
It's true. But they're kind of the exception that proves the rule in some ways.
They're the exception to everything. Are they getting in the Rock Hall?
Oh, 100%.
You think so? I got them at like 20%. I got like Chubby Checker above them, Joy Division.
Well, yeah, who is the Rock Hall anyway? I mean, it's not me. They didn't ask me.
It's a scam. It is.
I went to the Cleveland Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and I was excited. I'd always wanted to check it out. And I think I was in the Mickey Hart Band at the time, and we had a day off, so I fucking went. And I was so excited. And it was almost all clothes. It was like David Bowie wore this, Prince wore that, Jimi Hendrix's shoes, and fucking, I was like, really? Rock and roll is clothes? Oh no! Like
Elvis. Like, Elvis is black leather, and
whose Hall of Fame is this? This is not my Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Right.
I'm not ranking people by clothes. Like, what the fuck? That's a different art form than whatever the fuck I'm doing.
Right. How much space did you find playing with Mickey?
That was a really dense band at the time. He was. I played on a couple of his records and didn't do the tours, and they were really produced. Like I was playing by myself.
Okay.
Or I think at one point but he wasn't playing. He was standing there with headphones, kind of telling me what to play and shit. Like it wasn't a band.
Okay.
So then so I didn't tour those, but then I did do a tour and we were performing that shit. What were those records called? I don't remember. Anyway, so to recreate these really produced, really digital Pro Tools-y albums, we were playing to loops, triggers. We all had a click track. So it definitely wasn't like spacious improvising.
There you go. Fair enough.
It was like 8 instruments at least, plus computers.
Right.
So like, it was very cool music. It was not like fun.
Right.
You know what I mean?
One of them was Mysterium
Yep. Tremendum.
Tremendum.
Mysterium Tremendum. And the other one was Superorganism, I think.
Superorganism, yes.
Yeah. Those are that. I played on those albums. And when we toured, we played that shit.
Right.
And it was all really talented people, but it did feel pretty scripted.
Right.
You know? And it's weird because I associate Mickey Hart with like shamanism and like, I would have thought we would play some freaky shit and some
Like
exploratory
just
shit.
go out and he starts playing the guitar or something
But
like that. Right.
that's not what happened. We went out and he hit play on Ableton and we did some very interesting composed music.
Right.
It's possible he was improvising within that, but everybody else's parts were pretty scripted. So, but then playing with Bill Kreutzmann, opposite experience, completely opposite experience. Bill is my favorite musician I've ever played with.
Nice. I love it.
Bill steps to his instrument with complete beginner's mind.
Okay.
He has no idea what his instrument does on these songs. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
If you go to most people that love the Grateful Dead and you go, what's the beat to Scarlet Begonias? They'll go, oh, it's boom, boom, whatever. If you ask Bill, he goes, I don't know, let's find out. And he sits down at the instrument and he does what comes naturally.
Right.
And that's what I just wish we could all do.
Right.
Phil Lesh also did that, but they had the advantage of celebrity.
Right.
They're not afraid no one's going to come to the gig if they improvise. Whereas people that cover the Grateful Dead are afraid that if they don't sound just like them, people won't feel safe enough to show up. But the actual members of the band aren't like that.
Right.
Right.
My favorite
Bob Weir, every time I played with Bob Weir, he's not like He's Gone goes like this. He's like, how do I feel today? How do we feel today? That's how the song goes. Right. Not it goes like this. It's like, let's find out how it goes. It's the difference between doing a skit and playing a game.
Right.
And
there's something to be said of what you were saying about Mickey and it being more scripted. With my favorite Grateful Dead is from when Mickey left in 71 till when he came back in 74, when Billy didn't have the constraint of having to play with another drummer.
Absolutely.
That's the good stuff. That's the most out there the Dead ever got, really. I mean,
but in some ways also the most cohesive. That's when all the songs, like 90% of their masterpieces of songwriting are from 70 to 74, man. I mean, it's really unbelievable.
Mind. They had the group think working.
Yeah, it was fucking working, And they went on stage every night and they played a game. They didn't go on stage and recite the set list. What they did was go up there and count it off, and we're off, and we're playing the game. And they're playing the game from the first note to the last note. And they're not playing it in character. They're not like, my favorite guitar player is this guy, so I'm going to play like him.
I'm Keith Richards tonight.
They're all being themselves from the first note to the last note. And that's what they modeled. That's the behavior they modeled. And I wish we were also encouraged to do that by the marketplace. J-Rad is an example of people who don't play in character and are rewarded for it.
Mm-hmm. I'm a big fan.
Man, do I admire that? They really, they really just struck the right tone where people feel included and they don't have to do an impression.
Right.
The band doesn't have to do an impression to have the audience feel included. And that, sweet jubilation, sweet freedom. Do you know what I mean? Like a real hang. Then we can all have a real hang.
Right.
I
hear you. And they've and they've used it to their advantage. They've
It's
really
beautiful. It's beautiful.
it is.
Fucking
People
beautiful.
often talk. You mentioned Grateful Dead cover bands. See, I don't even consider them a cover band. I consider it more of like a jazz ensemble taking someone's catalog and reinterpreting it.
1,000,000%. 1,000,000%. I guess I feel like, 48 years old, I'm just like, man, I just want to do that every night, regardless of the music, regardless of the songs, regardless of the set list, and regardless of who my teammates are at that particular gig.
Right.
I want to take that truth serum, I just I want to speak.
Right.
The disadvantage that I'm at is two things. A, we started Jacob Fred when I was 17, and I never had to learn to be a good little bass player.
Right.
I had no social incentive or financial incentive behind conforming.
You didn't have to join a wedding band or something.
Exactly. Like I never went through a process of being shamed for having unique behavior.
Right.
And then I left Jacob Fred after 15 years. And since that day, with the exception of playing with Bill Kreutzmann and playing with Jay Lane, pretty much every other situation has kind of been predicated on me conforming to the behavior pattern expected from my instrument. And
right.
that's like a totally different ball of wax than what makes this very unpredictable, very risky career worth it to me.
Right.
You know what I mean?
You say that was true?
That's why I'm holding this thing.
Right. What was it true when you joined Tea Leaf Green? I guess that was a weird situation. You were given a body of work to learn, and
precisely, not only a body of work, but of their fan base was rabid, and they were not casually into that band. I wasn't familiar with them. I had never seen them when I did my first gig with them. I wasn't prepared for their relationship with their audience. That audience was not interested in variations on that material. That audience was not interested in the guitar solo going differently than before.
Right.
I mean, they were okay with the guitar doing things differently than before, but not the other instruments. During the guitar solo, the other instruments do what they're expected to do, and the guitar does variations.
Right.
That's the classic rock model.
It is.
And so I found myself dropped into the situation where I was doing what I thought what I thought was expected of me, which is love music in public out loud. And the audience was like, no, that's not how that song goes.
Do it the other way.
They were like, now the song's not doing all the stuff we like. And I didn't realize that because I wasn't familiar with their songs.
Right.
But that's why they asked me to play. They didn't want somebody to play the same shit. They asked me to play because they were Jacob Fred fans.
Right.
And they were like, we want you to be you. So I did. And then it kind of threw their whole game off.
Right.
Because even though the musicians were happy, the audience was not happy about the sudden and unrelenting variation
180,
that I was bringing.
180, right?
Yeah. And that really hurt. And I didn't understand at first. At first, I just thought they didn't like me, And then I had to grow up a little bit and be like, it's not personal. These guys just don't want a jazz approach.
Right. They want the artifact. I call it the artifact. You buy the studio album.
Wow. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. And that's fine. That's not worse or better.
I've gone to see bands for that. I went and saw Squeeze because I wanted to hear Muscles from the Shell just like the album.
If I went to put on The Office and instead of Steve Carell, it was like some cat I've never heard of, maybe it would still be hilarious, but I would be taken aback. Right. And chances are I would turn it off. Right. So it's like, I get it. Like I get that this is not what a lot of people are looking for. But that kind of newness, that kind of vulnerability, that's what I'm looking for. Right. And I gotta believe I'm not the only one.
I think a lot of jam band fans are. I've said this before, that we want to see people fall down sometimes.
Yeah.
Because they took the chance to fall down,
Yeah.
It's
It's
tough.
really an intense, it's an intense thing because it is an exchange with the audience. It's like, and I'm not trying to make it like, well, the musicians are more important than the audience. I'm just trying to be like, can't we all be new
Make it
together?
fun for everyone.
Can't we all just be new? Like what's the biggest complaint people have about like long relationships? It's like, oh, well, I can finish their sentences. There's no surprises. I know exactly. It's like, well, what's the opposite of that? Evolving. If you're
Right.
evolving, there's always some brand new aspect,
Mm,
And I'm just like, can't we do that at the shows? Can't
right.
we like, I just, and obviously I do have a selfish reason for wanting that, which is I suck at reading scripts and I want to have an okay career. And if my job description is read the script, read the Phil Lesh script well, or
Right.
read the Bootsy Collins script well, or read the Les Claypool script well, or read the Reed Mathis script well, even.
Right.
I'm gonna have a shit career because I'm not a script reader. So part of why I made the podcast and part of why I'm so emphatically making an ass of myself on this interview and why I make an emphatic ass of myself on every interview is because I really, really, really want to believe that there's a place for musicians that don't read scripts.
Right. Sometimes it's tough. You get tired of being real, huh?
I mean, the marketplace certainly doesn't appreciate it.
Right. I hear ya. What's up with this thing next week you got at Cafe Istanbul? You're going down to Jazz Fest.
Yep.
What's up with that?
Oh man, that's a project we did. So Aaron Magner is a old friend of mine, Disco Biscuits, plays piano. We've been doing Billy and the Kids with Bill Kreutzmann for 11 years together, but I've known him since 2002 or something. We just love playing together and we love hanging out together. And we've had a really intense ongoing dialogue about this exact shit, about improvisation and iconic songbooks. And is there a way to do both things? To, I don't know. Is there a way to go to the same amusement park 10,000 times and have a different experience each time, even though you're at the same amusement park? You know what I mean?
I think you have to because there's different people around you. There's different people working. There's different ways you got there. I mean,
well, I mean musically.
Okay, right.
I mean
right.
musically. How I'm talking about these songbooks. Like if you think of a songbook as an amusement park,
Okay.
or as a soccer field.
Okay.
Can you go to that soccer field and play 1,000 games and have 1,000 different outcomes on that same soccer field? Absolutely. That's the whole point. If
Right.
you knew who was going to win, it wouldn't be a game, So the whole point of going to a soccer field and playing soccer is that you don't know who's going to win. You're
Right.
going to get together and find out. So to treat iconic songbooks like that, where we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know even how we're going to behave. We're going to get there and find out.
Right.
That there's value in that in the same way that, like, oh man, the Super Bowl in 1968. Wow, what a crazy game. You know what we're doing on Saturday? We're going to go see our team and the other team do the 1968 Super Bowl. Oh man, in the second quarter, the one guy goes back here. So, there it is. He did it. Like, it's like, well, yeah, maybe that was an amazing game. And maybe it would be really interesting to see some great players recreate it. Or you could go to that stadium and have a new game.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to build a new stadium to have a new game, I guess is what I'm saying.
Right. So what is this? I mean, have you guys, Nikki Gillespie and Jason Fraticelli? Is that how
Fraticelli?
Fraticelli. Yeah. What are you guys focusing on? Is it improv? Is it a songbook you're going to be messing with?
We're going to perform Abbey Road as group improvisation.
You love it. Did you guys do a picture like the album cover?
Oh, no.
We should have found you a crosswalk in New Orleans to do a picture of it.
I think my manager had a piece of art made that looks like that, of course.
There you go. There you go.
That's
So,
the kind of thing I don't like, though. That's like, I mean, I like that he did it, but that kind of literalness
right.
is exactly what I'm rebelling against.
Right. I hear you. We'll flip the picture, have him walk in the other direction.
Or we could behave in an unrelated fashion.
Or an unrelated fashion. I hear you. So how much did you have to learn of that? How does that process work? You just played the album through a couple times and you're like, yeah, I got where they're going.
Well, yeah, I mean, you learn the words, you learn the chord progressions, and then you get together with some improvisers and you don't talk about what you're going to do.
There you go. The side 2 of that album is one of the greatest things ever done in the studio, probably.
This will be like our 4th time doing this little game, this Abbey Road game. And, like the medley on Abbey Road is like 17 minutes long.
Mm-hmm.
When we did it, it was an hour and a half.
Nice.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes, I totally see what you're saying.
We are taking every nook and cranny of every one of those songs and exploring it.
Right. Do recordings exist of the other performances?
I don't know.
I was talking to somebody on another show yesterday about the fact that one of the beautiful things about going to see bands in New Orleans for night shows and things like that is that's it. That's the only time you'll ever hear it because no one's recording it. It's happening in that moment and it's in your head, and that's the only place it's living.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, we're just basically, the tricky thing about marketing this kind of improvised music is that the appeal of coming to see us do this isn't going to be that you love Abbey Road.
It's that you like
the appeal is what is the same thing it would be if we were doing our originals.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see what I mean? Like we're not trying to give you Abbey Road. We're trying to give you us through that
blueprint. You're
game.
Giving yourselves a
we're
blueprint.
Saying Abbey Road is the soccer field. Okay. Now we're going to play soccer on it.
Okay.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely.
That's what we're going to do. So there's no crosswalk.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I love it. There's no crosswalk.
We're having a new experience.
Right. All right. Let's get into a little bit before we get out of here about your last year. 10 singles?
Yeah, there's 2 more coming.
2. So one a month, right? And you end up with
one a week.
Album? 1 a week. Okay. And you end up with a whole album.
Oh, it's way more than an album. It's like 3 hours of music all told.
Okay. Well, who's on it? Why don't you give me a little background?
It's Jay Lane, Adam McDougall on keys, Julio Xavier, aka the Jazz Thug, on synth bass, like keyboard bass.
Mm-hmm.
Me on guitar and singing, and then we overdubbed with Natalie Kreutzmann and Elliot Peck singing harmony.
Okay.
So I basically this game approach that I'm talking about. So I took this band of virtuosos with no planning, and we did Visions of Johanna, When I Paint My Masterpiece, Tangled Up in Blue, Queen Jane Approximately, The Man in Me, Isis, Simple Twist of Fate, Shooting Star, You're a Big Girl Now, Down in the Flood, and Forever Young. And we played each song for about an hour in the studio. And then I edited them down into
a song,
into
a normal length, right?
I wouldn't say normal. I wish, but no, about 10 minutes each. Right, right. So there are journeys.
So some interesting choices there with Shooting Star, The Man in Me. I mean, there's some later air. Well, I guess now it's not later air, Dylan, because he's been putting albums out for another 20 years.
Right.
But
yeah,
nice choices. Nice choices.
I mean, I made demos of like 30 songs, but then I narrowed it down to 12. And then we just did, but like the bass player had never heard a Bob Dylan song.
love
And
it. I love it.
and
That's
and
perfect, right? That's
I
perfect. He has
didn't
no preconceived notions.
and I didn't tell him that's what we were doing. I just said, "Are you available these days? Can I pay you this much? Great, we're going to improvise. Come on out." And then for each song, I would just write out a chord sheet, but I would make sure it wasn't a key that Bob Dylan played it in, that it
Right.
wasn't a key that anybody has played it in, because I don't want any habits. You know what I'm saying? So,
Right.
so you know, it wasn't the words Bob Dylan didn't come up. Like that wasn't the point.
Right.
The point was these very expressive, very vulnerable, very trusting individuals are going to play the game.
Mm-hmm.
And the Dylan songs are the playing field on which we will play the game, in which we will play the game. But the game is the point.
Okay.
So we did that, and then and we did the same thing when we were overdubbing the vocals. We just we improvised, and we came up with parts on the fly together. I wasn't like, the melody goes like this, and your note is this,
Right.
and your note is this. Let's try it once. Like, no, it was like we all went through and trusted ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
and
That's
just
beautiful.
composed together as we went. So it doesn't resemble anyone's plan,
Right.
mine or Dylan's.
Right. You
Like,
get them
it's
together and you let them play.
It's not, yeah, it's no one's plan. It's something cooler than a plan. It's an
Right.
organic pattern. You don't have a plan when you go have sex, you know, like it's an organic pattern that is coming about in real time in front of you.
Right. Right.
So, you know,
Oh, this is happening. Wait a minute.
coming from you. Yeah. Like it's happening in spite of you. It's happening.
Most of the time.
It's happening faster than you can explain it to yourself. Like that's the improvised state.
You're right.
It's the state of being in true relationship with what you're with, you know?
I love it.
So we did that. And then, so there's these huge instrumental versions, and then there's the versions with vocals. I use the instrumental versions as the score for the podcast. So all these conversations with all these great improvisers are taking place within this like edited, built suite of these group improvisations we recorded. Dude, Jay Lane's drum, it's astounding the music we made.
Nice way to tie it together.
And I feel like that I prefer the instrumental versions, honestly. They're so expressive. But then at the end of each episode, we play the full song, like, you know, an hour in or something. But then I release both versions, the vocal version and the instrumental version, one a week every Wednesday.
Okay. So we got 2 more weeks.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And is this on Bandcamp? Where am I finding it?
Oh, Spotify, YouTube, Apple.
Right.
How do
you feel about Spotify? Can I ask?
Oh, the devil.
My thing is that they sell subscriptions. They don't sell music, and people go there to buy music. So there's this complete disconnect.
Yeah. No, the whole streaming thing is I think a net loss for all concerned.
Yeah. Are you on Bandcamp?
Probably.
Right. Bandcamp's always better. At least people can throw you a couple bucks if they want. Or
yeah, but it's still immaterial, you know?
Right.
So
how do you make it work?
It's still just vapor. I mean, you adapt, you know? You adapt.
Or is it the playing live? Is that the way that we keep this music going?
Yeah, I mean, just playing, period.
Right, buying the tickets. But as a consumer, you know, buy a T-shirt.
Oh yeah,
buy a ticket. You know,
I mean, I don't make merch. I'm not a T-shirt guy. Right. Like I don't make mugs, so I don't sell them. Right, I sell sound.
Right.
You know, so yeah, come buy some sound.
There you go.
That's how you support it. You know, I have been in bands that had merch, but I certainly didn't make it. You know, so I don't know about that.
Well, at least buy the ticket, buy the backlog. Royal Potato Family has a bunch of the Jacob Fred stuff.
I mean, you know what I actually always think, and I don't know why it hasn't occurred to more people. Maybe it's a dumb thought, but what I've always thought is like, if you want to support an artist, in this day and age, look online for where their next show is and buy a ticket, even if the next show's in Baltimore and you live in Maine or Seattle. Just go to that venue's website and just
throw them the 20 bucks, right?
Buy a pre-sale. Buy a pre-sale to any artist show. And that is the most support you can give, because pre-sales are the numbers that determine what you're paid for the most part. Unless you're a huge artist, unless you're selling out night after night, your pre-sales determine how much you can ask for. But your pre-sales determine how scared the promoter is about your show, basically.
Okay.
So if anybody wanted to support me, find out where my next show is anywhere in the fucking world.
Cafe Istanbul next week, and then you're playing up in Ardmore on the 10th, right?
Yeah.
With Kim Ock, you get back together with Kim
Ock and my new best friend Daniel Donato,
right?
And fucking Russ Lawton,
George
Porter. It's going to be an amazing experience.
Yes, that's fantastic. And you're also showing up at High Sierra, huh?
Yep.
Are you artist at large? What are you doing there?
I'm an artist at large, and I'm going to perform. I put out a record last year that was intended for like meditation or sleep. It's called the Somnia Variations.
Okay.
And I played all the instruments on it. I made it to just help me relax and go to sleep, But then I was like, I should just put this out. Maybe somebody will like it. But then High Sierra, one of the people at High Sierra, unbeknownst to me, loves this album. And was like, specifically said, can we get Reed to come perform Somnia Variations?
Oh,
nice. At like 4 a.m,
Nice.
So
you were like, sign me up.
Sure. Yeah. I'd love to. So I'm going to do that, but I'm also going to be artist at large and sitting in with people.
I'm glad that High Sierra still exists. I was worried that it was going to disappear.
I know. I was kind of sure it was after Roy. I'm so thankful. I mean, dude, the world's so crazy these days. I am so thankful that any of this exists. I am so thankful for every single soul that is connecting with music and connecting with music in person.
Are you flying into New Orleans early, or are you flying in just for the gig and back out?
I'm going to come in a couple days early and hang with friends, hang out, sit in,
Nice. Anything you can tell us about? Any place you might show up?
No.
Oh, no, nothing. All right. I'm going to run an outro video. Could you please hang out for a second while I run the outro video? And I'd like to thank you off screen and everybody out there watching at All That Jam Pod on all the social medias. We got the .com. Please like and subscribe. Leave a comment later if you're watching this video. And remember, stay beautiful, but don't stay underground too long. We'll see you soon.